the income tax you pay unless you don't have a job.
And there is the sales tax credit that.
And if you don't have a job, you get the sales tax credit without having to spend any money. So you can do the economics any which way you want to. And you look at your income, and you look at how much you pay sales tax on. Look at everything you buy. And those who have more money do spend more. But the 1.5% sales tax, the consumption tax, is considerably cheaper than a income tax. It's just been, we can show you, look at the examples. We've given you examples after example of people making $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 in these books. The facts speak for themselves. Florida, Texas, New Hampshire, they all do much, much better without the income tax.
And everybody, I don't want to cut this short. We still have about 10 more minutes, if not a little bit longer. We want to get through as many questions as possible. The next one is if your proposed elimination for the income tax is Wayne Marshall from Waldo. Okay. In 2020 is adopted, if the income tax elimination in 2020 is adopted, how would you make up the $1 billion gap in the Maine budget?
Okay. First of all, you need to understand that the budget that I have prepared is a budget that I believe we can achieve it by January 20th, 2020. Is there a business cycle? Yes. If you use a dynamic fiscal note, which is what business uses, they use both the income stream and the expense stream, the cost benefit. We don't use that in government. We only use cost side. On the cost side, I would have a gap of $500 million. If all I do is get rid of the income tax and increase the sales tax, and you take your money and put it in a bank and don't spend it. Take all your income tax, the $1.3 billion, and you take it out of the economy and you put it in a savings account. And you collect 0.75%. You put it there and you don't spend it, I agree with you, there's going to be a $500 million gap. That's if you don't attract anybody to come to Maine to create jobs. That means that Jackson Lab doesn't spend the $75 million for the 300 jobs they want to create in elsewhere. That means that the Chinese company we're looking to come in and manufacture rail cars doesn't come. They haven't come because of the inconsistency in how we govern. We've been working there 3 years. And yes, if we don't do something, companies like Airbus will say, fine, we're going to Alabama. And Alabama is warmer than Maine, I will admit that, but they don't have the same lobster.
The next question is from George Terrian from Rockland. Rockland's tax dollars are stretched very thin. We're having to cut our support of public education as it is. How will your proposals affect Rockland's ability to educate our students?
Well, let's take a look at where you are, first of all. You're at 20 mills. Some of the service centers of Maine are being forced up to 30 mills. It's unfortunate. Two things. I think education is number one. The number one thing you can do in education, and this is what I would promote, statewide teacher's contract. You distribute the talent throughout the state, and the pay would be more equal throughout the state, instead of having all the good teachers go to Yarmouth, Cape Elizabeth, Gorham, and those areas, and we have to struggle the rest of the state. That's number one. You would save, I don't know how many millions of dollars in legal bills for not having to negotiate 127 contracts. It's very expensive if you only had one. And the teachers would like it. It's not the teachers that are the problem. It's the union. And it's the superintendents. When it comes to education, there are two winners and two losers. The superintendents, on 180,000 kids, we are going to spend over almost $2.1 billion next year. unheard of. Other states, it's incredible how expensive Maine is for being number 38 in the country. We're number 7 in spending, but 38 in performance. Utah, number 1 in spending, lowest spender in the country, number 1 school system in the country. It's all a matter of what your priorities are. Do I believe, let me give you an example. I had a gentleman in 2006 come up to me and say, if you and Winslow work together, we'll build you a new high school. One high school, regional high school. People of Waterville were 99.9% on board. The people in Winslow decided to have a referendum, and they defeated it 2-1. The reason why? The coaches got mad. The coaches were mad. One, the teachers. One, the quality education. It was the coaches. So my point is, it's all about priorities. I believe that the small communities of Maine need to be looking at how we administer our schools. The average school district in America, takes 2% of the school budget to administer the district. Maine is 4.5%. We're more than twice the national average. Average school size in America is 18 students per classroom. State of Maine, less than 11. Now, people say, well, I have a class of 23. I agree. I know of a class of 32. But I also know that when you add up the money and divide it by the kids, we're one of the most expensive. And when you add up all the schools, and you divide it by the number of kids at the schools, your classrooms are very small. Now, can we do better? Yes. Let me tell you another thing that we do very poor in. Many states have now taken on, and the university has, and the university's starting to really shine. And we have done some models in Maine that most people haven't heard of yet, and we're trying to get the word out. Online education, virtual education. Now, online education, I'm not a big fan of, because it's more difficult. Virtual education is this. You take your teacher of the year, take the history teacher of the year, they go live on using electronics with an ed tech in the class. You can teach a lot of kids. You don't, if there's only 6 or 7 or 8 kids in the class. Give you another example, Winslow. French 5, this is the last year I was the mayor there. Winslow had 4 kids in French 5 and a French teacher. Waterville had 5 kids in French 5 and their own teacher. So we had 2 French teachers for 9 students. That's the kind of things I think that we can do differently. We can work together to figure it out. Now I'll give you the best one of them all. University of Maine system in Fort Kent. In 2011, I became governor. So we talked with the president at the university, President Hess, and the Fort Kent High School. Fort Kent had 80 kids in the high school in the 10th grade. We put all their names in a hat. We took 24 names out. We put them at the university. They finished their junior year, their senior year, and we challenged to see how far they could go. One student completed a year and a half of college and his high school degree. 17 kids completed their junior, senior year, and their first year of college. And once the other 6 kids completed their junior and senior year and at least 1 semester of college. So they all moved forward. This year, is it 250 kids in that program?
I think so. It's substantial.
250 kids are in that program with 0 tuition. So that means that we can get out of where we are and we can do things differently. Biddeford Tech School last year put out over 240 college credits in the tech school. So what I'm saying is this. Do I have all the answers? No. But if we continue to do the same thing we've done for 50 years, we aren't going to get better. So we need to try different things. That's all my message is. Do I have all the answers? No. But do I work every day to try to find them? Yes. Saturday mornings, people come in bringing suggestions on how to better the budget. We send it down to Mike Allen, Dr. Allen, and he uses his financial people, and they do different models to see if it would work. I look at other states on how they operate, and we see what we can do to take some of the things that are in other states, the other 50 states, which our system was designed to have laboratories. So we take the best of others, and we implement it here, and we tell them what's the worst of. And we all do this when we get together, is don't try this, we tried it. Don't do this, we've done that. And now, for instance, the big push in a lot of states that have been doing it for a couple of years is the cloud, the technology going to the cloud. Instead of spending millions upon millions of dollars in the hardware, you can have somebody else have the hardware in multiple places, and all you need is people to input the data. So there's different things we can do. That's my message. Now, the other thing, got another question?
We'll have one more.
Okay, one more question and go ahead.
Okay. I did want to make one quick comment about education, though, going through some of the questions. Clearly, a lot of you, or many of you, think that there are education cuts in this budget. There are no education cuts in this budget. In fact, there's a $20 million increase. And as the governor mentioned earlier, he's asked the legislature for $5 million for schools specifically, if they're willing to consolidate. So I just wanted to make that reference clear, since we don't have time to get to all of the questions. I am going to get to one more, though.
I hear the answer to my question of how your proposals are going to affect Rockland's ability to educate its students. I heard all your information and appreciate it. I did not hear the answer to that.
The answer is, if you stay where you are and been doing the same thing for 50 years, you're not going to do much better. The fact of the matter is, we have to look at other ways than what we're doing. For instance, there are private schools that are spending $7,000 a year. The kids are coming out and they're scoring a grade level or two ahead of kids out of public schools. It's not about the bricks and mortars. It's not about the curriculum. It's about what you put in is what you're going to get out. And if you're putting in the same thing you put in for 50 years, you're going to get out the same thing that you've gotten for 50 years. That's the message I'm trying to put across, is you cannot, in the 21st century, if you're looking to have your kids compete with the rest of the country, you have to be able to look at what others are doing and improve. There are systems in the world that are so far superior to American systems. In matter of fact, 25 years ago, America was the #1 education system in the world, and now we're like 27th. So we are just simply not doing enough. And I'll tell you, in Maine, we're clearly not putting enough money in the classroom. We're not putting enough money in the classroom, and I don't care where you are, including Falmouth, including Cape Elizabeth. Those very rich towns can do so much more.
How are we going to distribute that money you're talking about? I haven't seen one bit of that.
What do you mean money I'm talking
You
about?
said you're going to put more money in education.
I put in, since I've been governor, I put in over 100.
How is that being distributed to the towns?
It's distributed to the towns, to the school districts. It doesn't go to the towns. It goes to school districts based on the population and the EPS formula.
In my town, I saw cuts, right after our budget was figured out, we cut our budget.
No, ma'am, no. You don't know what you're saying right there, because you might have seen cuts, but the cuts did not come from my office. The cuts came from a drop in population or an increased evaluation of the community, which goes through a formula. Now, if it didn't, listen, I think the formula for EPS is horrible. I've been against it for 25 years, but it is what it is. And the governor doesn't make that formula. That formula is made by the legislature. I think it's wrong.
You want to point out that there's a legislative sheet in there too? If they want to talk about it?
I mean, I'm there every day.
I'm a small business person.
All right, thank you, everybody. We're not going to have people
Ladies and
signing
gentlemen.
out.
I'd like to close with this. I would like to continue it, but, you know, you can't continue it that way. This, here's the sheet. Well, you know, we have to be civil. I will answer the questions, but if you say you're wrong and I'm there every day, I don't know what else I can tell you. I mean, when I became governor, there was $868 million in the school budget. To this year, $974 million. Not the budget. The year that you're in now, I have put in $974 million in education. I have put more money in education than any governor before me. Now, if you're saying there are cuts, now I'll say something else. In the last 10 years, state increased education is up 17%, and the communities in the state of Maine, the local communities, have contributed less than 1% increase overall for the state. The federal government is cutting, yes, but I can't take that responsibility. I don't have that responsibility. And you can shake your head, but I don't. I can't tell Obama what to do. As much as I'd like to. And I tried. This here is a list of the representatives and the senators in this district. Now, my point is this. I'm not here to say you have to agree with me, but I am here to try to give you the facts of what we're doing. And it's frustrating as a governor to be here and try to tell you what's going on, and you say I'm wrong. Well, the one thing I do in my life is this. I live it with principle. And lying is not one of my high points. So, I'm trying to tell you what we're doing. It's not my role here to say, please call your legislators to support the government. If you support it, please call your legislators. If you don't support it, please call your legislators. Because my purpose is to serve 1.3 million people. You can agree with some things, you may disagree with others. But the point is, your getting involved is what makes the system work. And this gentleman's had his hand up, and I'll
Thank you, Governor. I appreciate that. My name is Jeffrey Smith, and I live in Swanville. I used to live in Belfast. My question is about the education issue, which I think is universal in this room. Is it not true that your budget, which, by the way, I want to commend you, it is very bold and very far-reaching. Probably one of the boldest and most far-reaching of any budget in my limited time span, since I've been paying attention. Is it not true that your budget by 2018, is what I'm told, what I read, will result in a shortfall to the state because of the repeal of the income tax of $300 million?
absolutely incorrect.
Okay. Can you tell me what shortfall will be?
In 2018, it's balanced. My budget is balanced all the way through 2019. The problem is, the other side keeps saying, well, once you take the income tax away, that money blows up into it just disintegrates. That's not what happens. If you understand economics, or you studied economics, you will understand that the money flows through the economy at different rates and for different reasons, but it does flow. Americans are the worst savers in the world. I'm banking on that. The French and Japanese are the largest savers in the world, somewhere around 5%.
Exactly right.
We do not save that much. So I'm betting that people are going to spend that money. And when they spend that money, it's going to generate activity into our economy. The activity is going to generate sales tax, it's going to generate revenues for others, and that growth in the economy, along with the growth in jobs and the growth in job creators, as has happened in just the last 4 years in Florida, 800,000 new jobs in Florida in the last 4 years. That's as much as many people as the total people who pay income tax in the state now. So it's the dynamics of an economy, the growth of an economy.
Okay, I'll be the first to admit that economics is not my strong suit.
And I will tell you right now, to add to this,
But let me extend. You were kind enough to recognize me. I really appreciate that.
let him finish, let him finish.
Thank you, Governor, I appreciate that. So it is not true that at the Legislative Council that you appeared before as a legislator who either was there or has it on authority, that when they said, what are you going to do about the $300 million shortfall, you said 250 million is coming from education.
No, that's not what I said.
You denied that,
No, I didn't deny, no, I didn't go in front of legislative council,
okay?
okay? What I said is this, there is not a cut, there is no shortfall, there's no dynamic fiscal shortfall in my budget. There is a fiscal note according to the Democrats. What the Democrats are saying is you're creating a hole in the current budget. What I'm saying is, but there is 250 million being wasted right off the top with the administration of 127 school districts with the highest paid people in education are superintendents, assistant superintendents, principals and assistant principals, that we have 2.5 times more than the rest of the country. And you want to get a better education for your kids? Get more money into the classroom. We're putting not enough money in the classroom. And I will say one other thing in closing. You want to really fix education in Maine? Bring back the trades. Yeah. Because only 40% of our kids will go on to college, and the other 60% need to have some training of some sort. And we are failing them. Thank you all.
How are ya? How are ya?